Hello, welcome to the overly hostile world of Kenshi, a land filled with opportunity, racism, and strange stem cell creatures roaming the lands. Everyone hates each other, so instead of uniting them under one banner, what if we just took over the world using taboo methods? No, I don't mean getting everyone stuck in washing machines. I mean, what if we took the weakest group of nobodies in the game and led a campaign to simply eat everyone we found? Over the course of the next several weeks, we'll start as this group of nobodies with an overwhelming hunger for human flesh. We'll pillage the Holy Nation towns, burn down the Shek Kingdom, and maybe even realize that the true journey was the friends we made along the way. But before we reach the Holy Nation, or the Shek Kingdom, we need to secure our own borders, raise an army, and become king of the cannibals. Welcome to our gang of misfits. Here we have the leader, Cannibal, and his 5 followers, Knife, Jumper, Finn, Pin, and Jared, not from Subway. I didn't alter the follower names, Jared was literally just one of them, and I thought that was funny because they all have odd little names like Pin, and then there's just Jared, but not from Subway. Anyway, these are our starting 6, exiled cannibals hell-bent on taking over the world. So how does it work? Well, simple really. Since we went with the exiled cannibal start, we begin the playthrough with some research already done for us. Namely, the ability to make cooking poles, which amputate our captured enemies. We then put their limbs in our inventory, and they eat the limbs. The only downside is that it requires a constant supply of body parts. The good news? We start in cannibal territory, so we can just target the weak cannibals. This is a very different playthrough than what most are used to, in the sense that we're going to speedrun setting up a camp. Why? Well, because we need to build out our cooking station so we don't starve to death 5 minutes into the run. To build everything, we need tribal building materials, which we can obtain by using a descaled version of these stone mines. The plan is to catch some weak cannibals to eat, then use our cages to recruit a cannibal army. Obviously, the larger the group, the more mouths to feed, so we'll need to keep that in mind whenever we make plans to expand. Another positive for the start is that we've got some skills to start with. For example, Cannibal has mid-20s in everything, so he's not entirely useless right off the jump. With most of day 1 spent building out our camp, there wasn't really anything to do during the evening, so we headed out on our first hunt. Since we're in cannibal country, it didn't take long to find some action. Luckily, we were able to separate a squad of 7, pulling 3 away to ambush. They've got better weapons and higher combat skills than our group, so keeping the numbers advantage is going to be crucial early on. Especially when a loss here means we're the ones being eaten alive instead of the other way around. With 3 unlucky prisoners, we return to camp, which means it's time to show off how this setup works. Basically, all you need to do is put them in the cooking pole. Once an NPC is locked in, they'll slowly take damage, until eventually, all their limbs just kind of pop off. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty gruesome, so I'm gonna refrain from showing this often, but I wanted you all to know how it works so that you're not confused like 45 minutes from now when you see a limb barrel with like hundreds of body parts. The cages are arguably the most important part of this setup though, as they allow us to recruit prisoners like Olga here. There's another tribe camped out nearby, so if we play our cards right, we can farm them for food early on, which is exactly what I intend to do. Using Cannibal, we can farm some stealth here, and then just take their prisoners from them, effectively using these scrawny cannibals as a way to gather our food for us without putting ourselves in any real danger. It's incredibly easy to farm stealth XP here too, which is just awesome. Just look at how fast we're leveling up in only a few hours. After all that waiting, the perfect opportunity presented itself in the form of a wandering pack of bone dogs. Though when Cannibal attempted to kidnap a prisoner, a few scrawny cannibals caught on and chased him directly into the rest of the pack. My plan is to recruit the actual cannibals, and use the scrawny cannibals for food, since they're just so easy to fight. The best part about this is we're able to gear up relatively easily, at least in regards to weapons. The easiest way to gather them seems to be just raiding the scrawny cannibal camps and stealing them off of the prisoners. Utilizing that plan, we all managed to have hackers by day 2. One of the strange oddities of cannibal territory is all of the abandoned camps you'll come across as the various tribes war with each other. Naturally, this works out in our favor, as we can use the sleeping mats to heal up from our injuries without worry. Just around the corner from our outpost is a small village belonging to the Broken Finger tribe. These aren't your average cannibals, as they're stronger than almost any tribe we've seen wandering the plains, but if we play our cards right, we can isolate and slowly work through them, recruiting the strongest and simply eating the rest. Looks like the scrawny cannibals had the exact same idea as us though. We'll need to compete with them for the bodies. The biggest issue with these scrawny cannibals is that they just swarm you with overwhelming numbers. They don't do much damage, but if there's 50 of them against 7 of you, well, you're probably going to lose that fight, at least early on. I think we're starting to overstay our welcome here. We've got 2 rival tribes fighting just feet away from us. Canaman and Pin are unconscious, and Olga and Jared, not from Subway, are already carrying 2 future soldiers. If we stay here any longer, it'll only end poorly, so we gathered our downed men, picked up another prisoner or 2, and began running back to the outpost, though we'll have to deal with the stragglers first. Somehow, I lost track of Finn on the return journey, and he was captured by a group of scrawny cannibals, and it looks like they're at the same camp we just rested at a few minutes ago, so we'll need to mount a rescue mission before they devour him. In the meantime, we healed up the 3 prisoners we captured with plans to turn them into future soldiers. Since everyone's got injuries they're nursing, my plan was to send in Canaman since he's got the highest stealth, and hopefully just grab Finn from underneath everyone's noses. Luckily for us, the perfect opportunity presented itself when a fight broke out between the 2 tribes, allowing Finn to make a run for it with Canaman there for support. If we can just make it to the water, they'll give up pursuing us and we'll be safe, so that's what we did. The best part is that some of the stragglers from the scrawny cannibal group hung back and we were able to take out like 4 of them, giving us a ton of food to work with. We did get a warning that a cannibal raid was making its way towards our outpost, but we should be safe as long as we just hang out in the water and let them do their thing. I did send Canaman back to the outpost because the raid party was just kind of standing there. I even managed to knock out one of them and steal some bandages before they charged me. Now, this shot reminded me a ton of that scene from Pirates of the Caribbean 2 where Jack Sparrow's running from that tribe on the beach and they're all chasing behind him. You know what I'm talking about? Well, we're moving into day 3, and this is going way better than I thought it would, to be honest. The big goal for today is to try and make it into World's End to see if we can, enter cities without being immediately attacked on sight. If so, we can grind out some thievery, get our boys armored up, and begin taking over cannibal territory. While we wait for Canaman to make the trek up to World's End, I set the rest of the faction to start swimming. It just seemed like the most logical skill to get some experience in, since we're going to rely on the water pretty heavily until we get out of this place. Alright, the moment of truth. Hell yeah, dude, this is huge. Alright, well, we're here. Let's see what we can get away with. We've got some pretty decent gear for Canaman, but I noticed there's no guards upstairs, so I headed into the 2nd floor and farmed some Thievery XP for a few hours. The goal here is to just make runs and get everyone some decent quality armor that we can use to overpower the other cannibals. Hell, even the worst armor here gives us an advantage since all of the cannibal tribes run around naked. The only problem with this is that I was completely losing track of time, and then when I tried to leave, the guard kicked the shit out of me, leaving me unconscious with a 1k bounty. I did manage to get a few shots in on him, so I'm taking that as a win. But the hope here is that Canaman will recover as the shop opens in the morning, and I can just run out and wait until the bounty expires before coming back. In the meantime, Knife is starting to make his way over just in case Canaman goes into a coma, so that we can save his life on the off chance that happens. After coming to, I tried to heal myself but was immediately noticed and beaten into unconsciousness yet again. On the bright side, they actually threw me out of the building, so after he wakes up, Cannibal can just hobble on home. The bounty did go up to 2k, and the expiration is now at 79 hours instead of 30, so we'll need to bide our time until then, but still, all in all, it's a pretty good haul. All of our armor is high or specialist grade. Honestly, the real danger might not even be the other cannibals, but the cannibal hunter patrols roaming the lands. These guys all have combat skills ranging from mid-30s to low 50s and are fully geared up to fight. It doesn't look like my bounty is enforced at World's End. No one seems hostile towards me, so I popped back in and hit up the travel shop with hopes of finding a few sleeping bags. You know, I'm not really giving the Cannibal exiles a good name here. Admittedly, I went a little overboard with the stealing, but I did walk away with a thieves backpack, a ton of medical supplies, and a sleeping bag, even if it meant Cannibal was mobbed in the streets while making a run for it. Also, his bounty's up to 4,500 and the timeout on that is a whopping 179 hours, so safe to say we won't be setting foot back in here for a while. Also, for those of you who are like me and had the intrusive thought about grinding toughness on the cooking pole, I can assure you that it does not work. Bro's got 2 bolts through his skull and is just hanging on for dear life. You gotta respect it. Poor Cannibal. If it's not the consequences of our own actions. Also, the bounty just keeps ticking up. Nature is healing. I will say, it's a nice feeling to be able to take on groups of scrawny cannibals and just know going into it you're gonna steamroll them. They just can't compete unless they have like 50 plus guys running around. That being said, there's a scrawny cannibal raid party making their way over to our camp, so that'll be interesting. I don't think we have the gear to take them on just yet due to their sheer numbers, but hopefully by the next raid we'll be able to fight instead of running and hiding. It'll also completely stock us up on medical supplies and food if we can win one of these, since they just charge in. Like, just look at how many of them there are. We can't compete with that at the moment. The raid ended early in the morning of day 5, and with that, it was back to farming scrawny cannibals. Only this time, we have a sleeping bag now, so we slapped that down and let Cannibal rest for most of the day. For those unaware, sleeping bags heal you at 4 times the rate of just standing around. Beds do 8 times, but we can't afford a bed, nor do we have a building to place a bed in, so sleeping bags will have to do for now. One of my favorite parts of this mod is the fact that you can just make these tribal outposts. I don't need to go process stone for building materials, I can just make tribal building mats and then dump them into things like storage containers, etc. The big goal over the next few days here is to recruit several more soldiers to our ranks, and get the main group armored up and ready for battle. Luckily, all of these cannibal raids will give us the opportunity to continue training. There are also just so many small patrols running around that we really shouldn't have to worry about food again. I mean, it also helps when you have Olga and Jared not from Subway sending these scrawny cannibals into the fucking stratosphere. And right on schedule. The biggest issue I'm running into now is the fact that we only have 1 sleeping bag, and that kinda sucks when you've got 10 cannibals all getting their shit rocked. Oh, and it doesn't help when you get raided out of the blue by a group of cannibals who can, actually fight. Sometimes it works out where you can capture a few of them, but other times like this, it's like, well, they stole Ducky and knife right from under us. It's not too bad though. The camp is right next to the water, so as long as their legs work, you can just book it into the ocean. It also creates a great distraction since all of the cannibals will chase after you, allowing you to take the rest of your group in to rescue anyone who's too weak to move on their own. Worst case scenario, you can just blend in like when they walk around with zombie guts on them on The Walking Dead, except in this case, we're just wearing body paint and smell like shit. For some reason, most of them just don't seem to give a shit about us, except for the scrawny cannibals, but we've been farming them for days now, so they're not much of a threat anymore. Alright, Olga, calm down. We don't need to suplex Ducky into fucking orbit. New rule, Olga isn't allowed to hold anyone anymore. Good God, lady. We're still too weak to take on these raid parties, but hopefully in another day or two we'll be set, because they are starting to get a bit annoying, and I'm tired of dealing with them. Okay, this next bit is a little yucky, so apologies in advance. But the cooking poles slowly stack up humanoid leftovers. Crafting a cannibal preparation table allows us to turn those leftovers into human meat. Alright, seriously though, where did these guys even come from? They managed to kidnap Ducky again because they can't get their shit together, and also one of the new recruits. But Cannibal already lost his legs, so I'm just gonna let them have it. Back to cooking real quick. You can take the human meat from the leftovers and make this minced human pate, or pate, however the fuck you want to pronounce it, which has way more nutrition. Something's gotta change here, because this is just getting ridiculous. So it looks like the nearby camp is the group that keeps sending raid parties our way. Okay, so we're not gonna get anywhere if we just keep repeating the same cycle, so I sent Candyman back to World's End to grab some more gear. Mainly sleeping bags and armor. This was our first successful stealth mission, and Candyman was able to walk away with full sets of armor for most of the tribe, along with several sleeping bags so that we no longer have to rely on sharing one, like we're in some kind of Skid Row styled orphanage. While that was going on, I waited until the cannibals left for another raid and then broke Ducky out of captivity. All in all, a pretty successful night. We've got more food than we know what to do with now too, so I'm not going to focus on scrawny cannibals anymore. Instead, the target today will be that cannibal village to our east. They've got a whole large tribe of warrior cannibals that we could recruit to the cause. We'll just need to wait for Candyman to make his way home. Before we get to that though, it looks like a ton of these guys are bugged, so now seems like the perfect time for an early morning raid. This was nothing crazy. There were only like 2 or 3 cannibals here, and then a couple more chained up that we released, including our cannibal, who we brought back and sacrificed to the cannibal gods. As soon as Candyman made it back to camp, I began the process of slapping armor on everyone. Most of the tribe has armor and a helmet of some kind, but what I completely neglected was pants. Our face and chest are covered for the most part, but everyone's just going to be charging into battle with their dicks flopping around. George R.R. Martin's probably drooling over that. We also have multiple backpacks now too, and having pulled off a successful stealth mission like that, why couldn't we do it again? So I sent another detachment out to make another run. These tend to take about a day to pull off, but if we can get everyone armored up and ready to party, the raid on that village should go really smooth. Like I said earlier, any armor is a huge advantage since all the other cannibal tribes just run around naked. Anyway, while we wait for those dipshits to make it to World's End, I sent Ducky out to scout the village. It's got a fairly large roaming population, but there's only a handful of cannibals here. One of them, who I'm assuming is the leader, judging from the crazy name, was just killing a random prisoner. One thing I did notice is that they're all wounded, at least the ones guarding the camp, so even without 3 of our best fighters, I figured this was too good of an opportunity to pass on. Looks like there's 6 of them, all wounded too. Not only do we have the numbers advantage, but we also have armor, so with that, we charged in with Olga taking on the leader. Within minutes, we'd fully taken the camp. The first thing we did after incapacitating all of the guards was to simply pick them up. That way they couldn't escape or start another fight. There were some storage crates inside that we looted, walking away with a new shiny katana, about 1,000 cats, and some pants for the tribe. There were also some more general supplies in the crates, but I wasn't really interested in any of those. Since these are normal cannibals, I'm planning on recruiting all 6 of them to bolster our numbers some more. This way, we can keep snowballing our tribe and begin targeting the larger factions in the area in our quest to unite the cannibals under Canaman's rule. The only issue was that I fucked up here and forgot to change their names when recruiting them, so we have a few that are just Cannibal. While I was getting everyone situated, another large-scale assault kicked off with these scrawny cannibals, and once again, I didn't notice until it was too late. Funny enough, they only managed to kidnap the 2 named Cannibal, while the rest were able to escape and recover. They probably should have ended up with about a third of the group, but due to them giving chase to the tribe, they left wounded like Olga, Bimmy Juffet, and Ducky behind, allowing them to heal up and hide until the raid ended. We're really gonna need to fight back at some point, but right now they just have too many to win against. Looks like they're finally cooking and killing their hostages, so we're down a cannibal, but honestly not the worst thing in the world since I never got to name them anyway. Might just let it happen and focus on recovering for now. Well, that was all super exciting, but now it's time for another raid. This time, however, we wouldn't be as lucky. Actually, I don't know if luck had anything to do with it, I just think we got way too greedy and overstayed our welcome. Regardless, all 3 got their asses whooped. This cycle of recovering and then getting beaten down happened several more times. I do think it's a little funny that they just let us keep all the junk though, like no concerns there as we walk away with thousands of cats worth of armor. And at one point, I'm pretty sure I saved Knife's life by trying to pick him up. As Canaman attempted his rescue, he was cut down, launching Knife hundreds of feet into the air and over the mountain like an Uncle Rico pass. He landed safely on the other side, and since he's fully bandaged, it's just a waiting game for him now. The only one I'm truly concerned about is Jared not from Subway, since he's literally dying. Well, at least he died doing what he loved. Committing atrocious felonies with massive ramifications. Anyway, since both Canaman and Knife are out of commission, I sent Finn and Pin to come rescue them. The last thing we want to have happen is for them to be taken by a random slaver patrol, or even worse, cannibal hunters. Luckily, Canaman was just unconscious and wasn't knocked into a recovery coma, so he was able to scoop up Jared not from Subway's corpse and begin making his way home. Normally, I'd just leave the corpse, but he's got a ton of high-grade gear on him that I want to bring home. Well, that, and this is also a great way to help grind out some strength levels. Pin is still on the way to recover Knife though, since Knife is in a coma. It only took a few hours, but he was able to recover Knife fairly easily and begin making his way back to camp. While traveling by water is by far the safest option, I tried to keep Canaman on the shoreline so that he could continue leveling his strength up. I think this is just a bug, but Matt's name doesn't appear above his head, like the other cannibals should. Seems a little sus, so we'll keep an eye on him, but there isn't much that can be done about it. While making their way back to camp, Pin was attacked by a soul cannibal. Knife had just woken up from his coma, so he also got involved, but was dropped just after the fight started. In a battle literally for their lives, Pin just didn't have it in him and was overpowered. A little embarrassing in my opinion. I mean, if that was me, I would have just simply won the fight, but whatever, maybe I'm just built different. Anyway, the cannibal kidnapped Knife and all looked lost until a wild herd of goats came to the rescue. Don't ask because I have no fucking clue. They just showed up at the perfect time and started kicking ass, leading to the great goat cannibal battle of the ages. While making his way back, Knife got a front row seat to another group of cannibals capturing Pin. As it turns out, it's the same tribe. They just ran over to assist in the battle against the goats that was still going on. We'll have to formulate a rescue party for Pin, but as of right now, the main concern is getting all the gear back to the tribe. Okay, this has nothing to do with all the shit that was popping off, but this entire tribe just went off on their own, and Cannibal was able to literally just walk out of the camp and back to base. Looks like they're taking Pin far inland. A rescue attempt is going to be difficult to pull off, so hopefully he can hold out for a day or two while we form a plan. As if shit wasn't already going well enough, Candyman and Jumper were ambushed by scrawny cannibals just off the coast, and Candyman was taken prisoner, but Jumper was able to escape into the water. To make matters even worse, the bastards took Jared not from Subway and just butchered his corpse, so the entire trek home was practically for nothing. Luckily, they were pretty close to camp, so we were able to mount a rescue attempt consisting of baiting the scrawny cannibals away and then diving into the ocean. There's still a few holes for improvement, but for the most part, everyone's got some type of gear. Really, most are just missing helmets or boots or something small like that. The big problem now is that most of these guys are encumbered because they aren't used to wearing armor, which is a problem that'll hopefully just work itself out in time. I'm not sure why this happened, but it looks like the cannibal tribe that kidnapped Pin just left him here unattended, so he was able to pick his locks and escape, though he's still a long way from the ocean. You know, it'd be real nice to catch a break every once in a while. Come to think of it, this may be the first time I've had 2 raids within the same few hours. Luckily, these cannibals have the same IQ as a crypto bro, so all we need to do is just walk 20 feet away and they immediately lose focus. Also, shout out Pin for making it all the way back to the ocean without being eaten. Not something I was expecting to happen, especially with his leg injuries, but it looks like he's gonna be alright too. Want to see something amazing? Just look at that sunrise and try to tell me Kenshi isn't a gorgeous game. Anyway, with the nearest village wiped out, I sent Candyman off to find our next target. We're making progress, but it's slow. We need numbers, and we need combat experience, and the best way for us to obtain both right now is by raiding cannibal villages. It's also just a lot of fun to do. We don't have much of the northern lands scouted yet, so that's Candyman's job for the day. Run around and locate some villages. The 2 big factions in the area seem to be the Skulldrinker clan and the Broken Finger tribe, both of which have caused us some major problems since the beginning. On the bright side, they hate each other as much as they hate us, so they tend to keep each other busy. With that though, we're gonna need to find a way to deal with both of them. And that's even considering the fact that we just discovered a new tribe, Meat Lord's Horde. As a way to introduce myself, I stole a few weapons from a storage room and kicked off a turf war between them and the Broken Finger tribe. A great welcome to the neighborhood moment, I'm sure. On the way back to camp, I fought 2 random cannibals and kidnapped one of them to add to the team. Once he was back at camp, Candyman grabbed a few friends and set back out for the first village. It's time to start building an army, and what better way to do that than by forcefully kidnapping and brainwashing soldiers. The best part is that we're deep in cannibal country, so we didn't even have to run all the way over there before the tribe found themselves face to face with a Broken Finger patrol. Initially, I was a little nervous. I mean, they've got more men, and failure means at least one of our guys gets eaten, but everything ended up going really smoothly. If we can string a few more of these together, we'll be unstoppable. With the battle completed, we rounded up as many wounded as we could carry and brought them back to camp for a healthy dose of conversion therapy. This ended up taking over a day before everyone was fully converted, just due to the fact that almost all of these guys were in comas. While waiting around on day 13, we were raided by the Skull Drinker clan, which we were able to handle pretty easily. The biggest issue now is that we've got too many men and not enough cages. To help with this, we quickly built out 8 more cages to handle the increased prisoner load. Make no mistake, this is a fantastic problem to have, just not one I was expecting so early on. Of course, during this entire process, we were raided yet again. Cannot wait till we're out of this shithole. After spending almost 2 full days recruiting everyone, I sent Cannibal and 2 others to head back up to World's End to steal more armor. Look at the expendables. It's finally happening. We're up to 49 members with 2 more in cages, so we should be over 50 by day 15. Just a massive force, but we're just getting started. It was around this time that I figured having a few crossbowmen couldn't hurt. Now, I cannot stress this enough. We hit the absolute fucking jackpot. 3 specialist grade triple shot bows, a masterwork bow, a few more standard grade, tons of bolts, and that's with the ground floor is still intact. If we can get a line of crossbowmen to initiate our fights, the enemy won't stand a chance. Now, there were some trade-offs to today though. We hit on the ranger shop, but only managed to loot a small portion of the armory since they've got guards watching all the main shelves. Guess we'll just need to wait until nightfall. On the bright side, Locklock's bag is loaded to the brim, so we sent him back to drop off the gear while Cannibal and Olga stayed back. That being said, I did manage to find a spot where I could steal from directly under the shopkeep without him noticing. Though it only lasted for 2 runs before I was caught. Now, not wanting to risk another Jared not from Subway incident, we dipped out as soon as they stopped searching for us, making it back home on the morning of day 16. Real quick, you want to see Locklock doing what Pin couldn't and successfully winning a 1v1? With the gang all back, we geared up as many of the expendables as possible, created 2 more squads, one for archers and one for pack mules, and then sent Cannibal out on a scouting mission for our target location. See, if we stay here and live like this, we'll probably do alright. The food literally comes to us, so we just need to build some actual walls and add some turrets. But what if there was a hero that all the cannibals could follow? A man who could unite the smaller tribes against a greater threat. Legend has it that the supreme ruler, known only as the Grand Wizard, just without the white hood, lives in the west. He's become complacent, allowing the tribes to war against each other, and we can't have that. Uniting the tribes under a new ruler would give us the forces needed to push south and establish a foothold. Arriving at the cannibal capital, here's what I gathered from the scouting report. There's large patrols of 18 to 21 men. At least 2 of those, with another small patrol of around 6 men. The Grand Wizard is hanging out near his house, with several chiefs guarding him. They have about 40 men inside the camp, and another 80 to 90 roaming outside of it. Safe to say, we're outnumbered. But maybe we can pull this off. It won't be easy, but we can use stealth to pick off as many cannibals as possible until they notice. Once that happens, we'll have Olga lead the charge with the expendables, while Cannibal and the rest of the starters rush the Grand Wizard. The secondaries will protect the starters, forming a protective barrier between them. While we wait for our army to make their way over, Cannibal took the time to initiate some first contact. It went about as well as you'd expect, with him getting his ass whooped, barely escaping before finding an empty camp to rest in for a bit. Now, as it turns out, this is a camp for a detachment of the Grand Wizard's horde, which worked out well for us since we can storm the shores and wipe these guys out, using their camp as a forward operating base before the assault. While we wait though, Cannibal's job is to weaken the encampment as much as possible. Now initially, he was doing fantastic, until he bit off more than he could chew and was taken prisoner. Looks like we're not the only ones fighting back though. The best part about this is I have zero fucking clue who's on whose side here. It's just a giant free-for-all. With all that chaos going on, Cannibal was able to escape into the water and just watch the shit show unfold. Now, sometimes it's easy being a scout. You can just let the enemy tear themselves apart. Want to see something absolutely insane to me? There were 4 different cannibal tribes during this fight. You've got the Grand Wizard's horde, the Bone Eaters, the Blood Reavers, and the wildling scrawny cannibals coming in to clean up the fight. After a day or so of guerrilla warfare, we'd managed to drop their population down to about half of their peak strength, with most of the survivors wounded. Everything was going so smoothly, until the early hours of day 19, when the reinforcements arrived to bolster the camp. While waiting, I found this small rock portion sticking out of the water, so I placed my archers on top of that, allowing for them to fire from absolute safety. While they began picking off the camp, our main forces moved in from the east. The biggest issue we need to work out though, is the fact that our archers are terrible and almost cost us the fight after giving Cannibal the old Pat Tillman treatment, knocking him out for most of the battle. That being said, the camp was ours by 10 AM. We spent the rest of the day setting up shop, distributing food to whoever needed it, and allowing the wounded to rest. By that night, another round of reinforcements was sent to take back the camp, but by then, we were already gone. 20 feet away in the water, looking at them. Cannibal Capital has 39 active residents inside their walls, with an additional 43 out roaming the plains. The goal isn't to take the city, just the Grand Wizard, so if we can get in and out without them noticing, excellent. And as luck would have it, while we closed in around the city, the Grand Wizard sent out 2 fairly large patrols, significantly weakening their forces inside the walls. As I was getting the men organized, I noticed one of these patrols was making their way towards us, so I set my crossbowmen into a line and began firing bolts into them while the expendables charged in from behind. A few expendables were knocked unconscious, but for the most part, we handled the fight pretty well, even when the beak thing showed up. While we wrapped up that fight, I noticed the Grand Wizard had been left unguarded. This was a now or never chance, so I grabbed the starters and secondaries and ran in to take him on. I don't want this to come off as bragging, but the entire battle was just incredible. As the main group charged in to take on the Grand Wizard, the rest of the expendables noticed and followed suit regardless of how wounded they were. Right off the bat, we lost 2 men. Salty Baby Batter and Upgrade both took direct shots from the Grand Wizard and fell instantly. While the battle waged on, the remaining forces from the Grand Wizard's horde made their way back over, all of it culminating in a giant cluster of numbers in the middle of the town. We were at a massive disadvantage though, since anytime a member would fall, the horde would throw them in cages, effectively taking them out of the fight and resulting in around a dozen of them being taken prisoner. However, that didn't stop them, and after swarming the Grand Wizard, we finally knocked him out. At that point, Cannibal and most of the starters were either imprisoned or too wounded to run, leaving only Lock in charge of the remaining forces. And as soon as the wizard was dropped, Lock swooped in, picked him up, and called for a retreat, leaving several members behind as the horde chased them out of the walls. While the group retreated, Octal and his team of crossbowmen provided fire support, killing several of the pursuing cannibals and allowing our surviving forces to regroup effectively. If you need any more proof that nature is on our side, during the aftermath, two beak things had wandered into the capital and begun wreaking havoc on the horde survivors, giving our prisoners a chance to escape. Now this is an unforgiving land, so naturally, while our forces attempted to reorganize during the aftermath, we were attacked again by a group of scrawny cannibals, knocking more of our men unconscious. The longer we stay here, the riskier this gets. So I had the healthy troops carry the wounded, and took most of the forces on a death sprint back to safety of the ocean. We're running out of time though. They're beginning to cannibalize the prisoners, with Matt being the first to go. While Cannibal and Harkon tried to think of ways to save a few more men, the retreating party had to deal with ambushes from small patrols. Back at the capital, Cannibal ran in to try and help rescue a few more men, before being knocked unconscious, resulting in 3 more dead followers. By just after midnight on day 21, we'd managed to rescue the remaining 12 prisoners. In total, I think we lost 7 or 8 in the battle, all for a shot at the Grand Wizard. A noble sacrifice, no doubt, but there's a reason they're labeled expendables. That being said, it's still a sad day anytime we lose a few men. The worst part about all of this? The Grand Wizard is dead. Now, I know some of you are sitting there going, but Preds, that's a good thing. He was a monster, and now there's no ruler, which means Cannibal can become the leader he was born to be. And while that's true, I was planning to use the Grand Wizard as the captain of the Expendables, commanding my armies as we continue to push into the Holy Nation Empire. With him gone, it just felt like this entire battle was for nothing. To end on a positive note though, before heading back, I had Cannibal sneak into the capital and hit up the Grand Wizard's storage chests. There's some insanely powerful weapons and gear in here, so he grabbed what he could carry and left the rest. I'm sure we'll be back at some point, but for now, I just want to get everyone back home safely. With the Grand Wizard dead, Cannibal was free to take his place. Word spread quickly throughout the plains, and within days, the Bone Eaters, Blood Reavers, and even the Wildlings pledged themselves to their new king. For the first time in decades, the cannibals were united. The easy part's over. Now, we march south.